Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Freedom Project stream. Today we have Miss Megan de Beyer with us. She's a psychologist with 30 years of experience ranging from individual and relationship to family and group psychotherapy. Uh, Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. And as I said, I'm happy to join with any project that is helping people find a little peace in their heart and a better emotional stability. So I'm glad to be here.
Uh, and we're honored and honored to have you here. Thank you for being here. And a little bit more about her. She has a MA in psychology and MSc in holistic ecology from the UK. She's a registered psychologist in South Africa. She's also a member of the British Psychological Society in the UK. And she's also authored a book called How to Raise a Man. So you can check the description below. I'll put the link to the book if you want to check it out. Uh, hello, ma'am, and we'll jump right into the questions. Yeah, if you don't mind. So, you've done work in the UK, in South Africa, Australia, and California as well, right? So, what did you do in the UK, and then why did you, shift to South Africa and then Australia later on?
Yes. So I'm originally from South Africa, but my mother is English and my sister lives in England. So it was easy for me to take my courses, and my flagship courses are courses for mothers of teenagers. So I work with mothers of teenage sons and mothers of teenage daughters. So that's the course that I traveled to the UK with. I also traveled to Australia, and Australia then loved my book, and it is now published in Australia as well. So it's published by Penguin in South Africa, and then published by Hachette or Hachette in Australia. And then in California, I was invited by a school to speak to their parents. And at that time, I was particularly focusing on conscious parenting. And this was many years ago. Now it's a popular term. But I was interested in parents raising their own consciousness and being aware of their own state of mind and their own emotional health before they point fingers at their children and their teenagers. So California was interested in what I was saying, and they invited me to run a few courses and to give a few talks. And I spoke to mothers of daughters and to mothers of sons. And what I've found across the world in those countries, and of course I've run hundreds of courses in South Africa, what I've discovered is that parents get very confused during the adolescent years, and now even more so, because anxiety is running high. Teenagers at the moment, the statistics of depression, of suicide thoughts, of actual suicides as well, all those stats have gone up. We're also seeing rising statistics in drinking amongst teenagers, taking drugs amongst teenagers, and there is an explanation for this. And so families are in distress right now, and are across the world. And the unfortunate thing is that we were already seeing difficulty with teenage depression, teenage anxiety before the pandemic. So as you can imagine, the pandemic has now made this worse, and households are really battling, especially during lockdown. It's difficult for them to work from home, be at home, create a happy home, while teenagers are also unhappy and locked up, and a lot of parents are trying to homeschool as well.
Yeah.
And kids are dropping out of school. We know that. It's happening all over the world. So I suppose the big question is, what do we do and where do we go from here? And how can we cope with these huge stresses? I think that is what parents are asking me to answer.
Yes, that's true. And so be it anywhere, it's currently the same problem, and the whole world is going through it right now. Yeah, the pandemic and everyone staying at home. So and everything going through as it is, people are worried that we're not getting the education that we would in a physical environment, and humans are social creatures, right? So we learn more, or we connect more when there are people close to us, or at least someone there physically and emotionally, or in the flesh in front of us.
Mm,
We are more inspired to learn, or inspired to do anything for that matter, right? And then staying at home, so
mm,
there's no tutorial or a guide that says this is the perfect way to do parenting. It's so, and a lot of people don't do family planning, and once you reach a certain stage, you don't know how to tackle situations of asking or keeping up with your growing children, right?
mm,
um,
mm,
so that's definitely true.
mm.
So my next question relates to the project you're currently working on, the Mothers and Sons project. So what
Yes,
is the Mothers and Sons project that you're currently working on?
yes, yes. So it's a, you know, I have stepped into this arena for two reasons. The first is because over the last 5 years, around the last 5 years, we've seen an we've seen an increase of negative press about men and masculinity. So we saw the Me Too campaign. We saw a lot of really powerful men being convicted of, being predators, abusing their power, should I say, and predating on young girls, on women, and a lot of actresses and famous people stepped forward during the Me Too campaign to say, especially in America, Australia, and it was also happening in the UK and to a smaller extent in South Africa. A lot of girls were saying, enough, powerful men can't just have what they want. We are worthy, we are valuable. So women were stepping up. And then mothers were turning to me and saying, how do we raise boys for the future? How do we raise boys to be happy about their masculinity, but share the space with girls and women in a really safe way? How do we raise boys to respect women, to respect their girlfriends, and to move into a future where the genders are more at peace with each other? So parents were saying to me, how do we raise? And what I found over and over is that mothers were the ones that were most curious. Fathers were not really reaching out to me and saying, how do we raise boys to respect women? But a lot of mothers were doing that. So that was my first reason why I wrote a course for mothers in particular, because they were the ones that were asking about this. The second reason I wrote the course and have been running the course is, as a boy grows, he becomes very dismissive of his mother. He can also become quite arrogant, rude, and he can show signs of chauvinism and toxic masculinity by swearing at his mother, by shouting at his mother. So we see a teenage boy pushing his mother away. And moms, and I'm also a mother of two boys, so I also had this confusion. Why did my beautiful little boys of 8, 9, and 10 suddenly become very rude, very burly, very brash, um, from about the age of 12, 13, 14, even towards 15 and sometimes to 16? So why were boys changing towards their mothers? And I wanted an explanation of that. So as a psychologist, I jumped into the study of masculinity, and I looked at these defense mechanisms that masculinity typically uses. And defense mechanisms that masculinity typically uses are attack, anger, rage, or withdrawal. And then mothers and women get confused about this. Why is suddenly, my teenage boy attacking me? Or why is he withdrawing? Why is he going into the room and slamming his door, or doesn't want me near him, or doesn't want me to come and meet the teacher, his school friends? What's going on? And moms felt very confused. So that was the second reason I ran the course. But mostly, I would love to see a world where genders understand each other. And in order to understand each other, we got to know the differences between masculinity and femininity. We also need to know how to raise boy children, and what's the difference between raising boy children as opposed to girl children. And over, I have emphasized that there are more similarities between a male human being and a female human being. There are more similarities than dissimilarities. But some of the differences really show up during the teenage years. So that is why I try and educate mothers about what are the changes that they can expect and why are there these hypermasculine behaviors. And it has got a lot to do with the hormone testosterone. And women and moms typically have more estrogen and progesterone. So the hormone that women are functioning with is far more prevalent than the testosterone that is tearing through a teenage boy's body. So that is why I launched that course. And of course, then mothers of daughters were saying, but what about us? You know, we also seeing this strange teenage behavior. We also seeing our girls being, excuse my language, bitchy or ratty, or we also seeing our girls, you know, being rude. They're also showing that behavior. What's going on? But it's slightly different because girls do like to connect. They do like to talk things through. They're more aligned to their mothers. Mothers understand the girls' emotions a little more, so they're able to step into the arena. So my mothers and daughters courses are a little different to my mothers and sons courses, because in the mothers and sons courses, I'm trying to explain masculinity and how masculinity develops during the teenage years, and what do we define as a mature, fine young man? How do we define that? And I encourage parents to begin to define their ideas around what they think is a fine young man, and so that they have a long-term vision, not only a short-term vision.
Yes, that's true. So like you said, so it's not just a small period of time that you need to focus on your child, and then suddenly they become ideal members of society. It's an ongoing process, and and the human body is not it's moody in a
It's
sense, right?
moody. It's moody. It changes.
Yeah.
And you know, with my studies of non-dualistic thinking, which actually, strangely enough, began in India. I had a trip to India 20 years ago, and it made a huge impression on me. And I then studied Advaita Vedanta, actually, in quite a lot of depth, and then went into meditation, and then obviously yoga, and spending a lot of time learning non-dualistic thinking, and learning that a calm body, a still mind, an open heart is going to help parents. And so therefore, in my courses, I include a lot of mindfulness practices, focus on the body, on calming the mind, and on how do we open the heart? How do we increase our empathy? Because if we can increase our empathy in our relationships with our kids, it's going to help us raise children that feel more secure and connected. There is no doubt that our children benefit in a more peaceful home. And so where does it start? It starts with the parent. Unfortunately, I know that parents who listen to me often want to say, but it's my child is naughty, my teenager is impossible. They're the ones that are doing the bad things. And I always say, no, unfortunately, it starts with us. Are we practicing our capacity to have a still mind so that we can raise our consciousness to a level of more creativity and more open thinking? Let's just call it open thinking, so that we're not so rigid and stuck in our ways, because we are raising the next generation. So we've got to have a more open mind. And I have discovered over and over that meditation, yoga, being more self-aware allows me to recognize when my thoughts are negative or rigid. And then I'm able to soften that process quite naturally through my meditation practices or my yoga practices, or even my breath work practices, my pranayama. Then, of course, open heart is essential, because our children need to be able to connect with us in a safe way. So a child needs to feel safe enough to be able to feel secure in the world. And that security in the world helps them to have good relationships with their sibling, and not only with their siblings, but with their peer group. And so it starts with the parent, unfortunately. I know that's hard to hear, but it starts with the parent. If we, and where does it start? It starts with our relationship with ourselves. If we are gentle enough with ourselves and loving enough towards ourselves, that we value ourselves, we take ourselves seriously, then we would want the best for ourselves. If we valued ourselves, we would want the best for ourselves. And when I say what is the best is not external things. It's all very well to have, a comfortable home and good material things. But when I use the word the best, wanting the best for ourselves, for me, that is about the state of your heart. The state of your heart. So if your heart is open and you are gentle towards yourself, and that you value yourself in a loving and kind way, then that will naturally spill out to other people. So the practice has to begin with ourselves. So in order to develop conscious parenting, it has to develop with a conscious practice that we are disciplined enough to do. And I think it's honestly essential right now. I don't know how anybody out there can cope without a meditation practice or a prayer practice or even a mantra or some pranayama or some yoga. I don't know how anyone can cope without it, because there are so many stresses on us. We're worrying about the future all the time. We're worrying about our children. And so we need to find the peace within first. And then once we found some peace within, then we are able to bring that into our home and create a better atmosphere. And then the next step is that a child will not grow safely and with an understanding of what good relationships are unless they have a decent relationship with their parents. If they have a decent relationship with their parents and they're very clear about their parents' values and their parents' goodness and their parents' kindness, there then is a possibility to grow having good relationships themselves as children, and also, not only that, expecting other people to treat them well. And this is the thing where it all goes wrong. If children are treated badly at home, if they're only ever shouted at, if they're seen as bad and wrong and considered a nuisance, then these children begin to internalize that and believe that that's what they are. And then what happens is they attract the wrong type of friends. And then it just snowballs on. But if the
Yes.
child values themselves, then they expect to be treated well. This is how
Yes.
it operates, you know. So it
Yes.
starts
That's true.
in the home with the parent, and the parent putting aside their work, their worry, their anxiety, finding a way to calm themselves down enough through their own practices so that they can interact with their child or their teenager with an open mind and an open heart, and that
Yes.
that obviously then sets up better relationships, because honestly we don't know what to do right now. No one has the answers. So what do we control? You know, no, there so few answers. We're hoping that things get better. So there are
Yes.
few answers, but what can we control? What can we control? And what we can control is our attitude, our attitude, our
Yes.
attitude towards ourselves, our attitude towards others. And we also have control over the intentions we set. And I think intentions are very, very, very important. And we can
Yes.
talk a bit about that if you want to. But I think
Uh,
setting intentions and setting intentions
yes.
around the values that we hold in our home, so
Yes. That's true.
are,
Um,
are essential. And one has to actually verbalize those intentions. You can't just imagine them. You've got to write them down, verbalize them, share them with the whole family.
yes. And so when we think about it, everyone has different intentions of what they expect from themselves and from their children as well. And like you said before, what we say to our children or what we say to uh, like what children hear, like, so now I'm not a parent, so I'll think of it from the
Mm,
other side.
mm, mm, mm,
So it definitely works in such a way that if your parents tell you something and then, like you said, you internalize it, and then you think of yourself of being that person, because if your parents are incorporating or saying that to you, then you feel these are the people who know me the closest, and if they feel in such a way, then I might be in so and so
mm,
position, or
mm,
I might be what they are saying is
mm.
true, and then
I
they go
it's
into that
it's such a powerful
loop.
thing. I know it's probably sounds so simple, but it's such a powerful thing. You know, as you said right at the beginning, human beings need relationships. We spend our lives connected and in relationship, not only with ourselves, because we carry ourselves around, but we are in relationship with others. And it's in those relationships that good things or bad things happen. And
Yes, yes,
and so it's astounds me that people who have been raised in a good, solid, secure attachment grow up to be secure, open, happy adults. And people who are raised in homes that are abusive or silent, or where the behavior is nasty or cruel, those children often grow up to be abusers themselves, or they find themselves in circumstances that reflect the way they feel about themselves. And so if people feel negatively about themselves, they end up in circumstances that reflect this negativity. So I think that the home is essential.
yes. It's definitely, and everything starts from the home, and a home starts from parents. So parents
Uh,
together.
I know that parents are probably listening to me and shaking their head and just saying, we have so much responsibility as it is, you
Yes,
know, there's so much work,
yes.
there's so much effort. But if
So
if parents can find a way to feel more peaceful and happy inside themselves, no matter what their circumstances, it's going to make a huge difference to their
yes,
children.
yes, that's true. And so when you spoke about responsibility, so firstly you have a responsibility to yourself once you grow up, you have to make yourself, uh, like, you have to do well for yourself to at least firstly get the material things that you have, then finding a partner, and then once you start a family, taking care of the son or the daughter or taking care of children. And then you're not in the mindset to, not so, like, a few people are, I'm not generalizing here, but there are a few, most of the people that we see currently, like I see in India, uh, they don't have that approach, like how my parents did it with me, how was their parenting. The same way I will try to, raise my child up, because I came through all of that, and then I'm doing well for myself in life right now. So
Mm,
that is a mindset that, people have. And then if sometimes they think that, if my son is doing wrong or something else, they think that, if we take him to a psychologist or psychiatrist, they can give him some medication and then he'll be on the right track.
mm,
But that is
mm.
definitely not the way to go, right? So
No.
here, my next question relates to holistic science that you've done, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
what is holistic science, and how
All
can
right.
we use it for mental health?
Okay. So I studied primarily holistic ecology in the UK through a university in the south called Plymouth University, but I went to um, a department called Schumacher College, and that's not after the racing driver. That's Schumacher College was named after the economist Schumacher, because that economist had a holistic view of the world and said that we should first and foremost live in villages and support each other in our community before we worry about the rest of the world. So I'm sure people in India will relate to that. But I went to that college, and at that college, I learned a lot about ecology, and I learned the principles of nature. And everything in nature operates with particular principles. And lo and behold, one of the first principles is relationships. Everything in nature is in relationship with something else. You do not find one single blade of grass or a flower or a bee or a butterfly or a tree that says, oh, no, I'm separate. I'm different to everyone else. I'm going to check out and be an individual. No. Nature shows us that everything operates in community, in an ecosystem, and everything is connected to the other. So I think that's very powerful for our parenting practice, that first principle of nature. Because if we begin to raise children to think that they must be only an individual, or if a mother or a father decides that they're an individual and they will do things the way they want to do things, they'll suit themselves, we know that it goes wrong. So when we have a family, we have to recognize that it is a system and it's an ecosystem. And everything I do as a mother, or everything my husband did as a father, is going to impact on the rest of the family. And it's a silly thing to think that we can be absolutely individualistic. And of course, as you know, non-dual philosophy also agrees with that, that at the highest level, everything is one. Everything is one. And at the highest, obviously we don't operate at the highest level, but if we see this vast interconnection where we all share a very similar life force, then nature also shows us that. So I was excited by that. The other thing I was excited about by studying ecology was the fact that that there's this thing called emergence. And in evolution, emergence happens. And emergence does not have a plan.
Yes,
And
that's
emergence, so let's just take an example, like a tree dies, it falls on the forest floor, the bark starts decomposing, the tree starts, and then something emerges. And often what emerges is something grows. There'll be some fungi growing, or so lichen will grow, or suddenly a bird will make its home there, or
Yes.
something emerges, but it's not planned. The tree doesn't say, I'm going to fall now. And, and when I decompose, I'm going to attract a rabbit. It doesn't have that
Yes.
plan. So emergence happens in nature naturally. And so we've got to hold this view that we are also nature. We are human beings. And we have this human aspect of ourselves that has a body and that is deeply connected to natural laws. And so to think that we can always plan and always have an outcome the way we want it and get so focused and fixed on an outcome is a silly philosophy. And it's a silly philosophy to teach our children. We've got to find the balance that, yes, it's good to plan and it's good to have your steps and your focus for your outcome, but we also have to make allowance for the magic of life. And if we don't, life can become incredibly boring and tough and hard because life emerges. And we've got to begin to understand that we don't often know what the outcome is going to be by having a daughter or by having a son or by sending our child to a particular school. We can't be so set with our expectations that we just want one outcome. He must get into the best university. That's the outcome, We must open to life and the flavor of this human being, what life is showing us, what is going to emerge. So we've got to hold both. I love to use the word and that's very much a holistic ecology word, because in nature, you can't separate things. You just cannot. And you cannot predict an outcome. So you have to have this word and. Even in your garden, let's plant these plants. But then we've got to have an and, because maybe when we plant these plants, there were other seeds there. And so we planted carrots, but we've also got some potatoes, because they were there last season, and so we come with an and we make allowance for this creativity in life. And we need that attitude especially with teenagers. Teenagers are emerging. They're emerging. They're not becoming something that we want them to be and that we expect them to be. We have to make allowance for their own emergence and their own life, because there is a soul. There is a soul. And I totally believe in that soul. And you can call it anything you want. Soul, spirit, atma, energy, chi, whatever it is your word. There is a natural energy and an intelligence that is going to unfold in all of us. So our children are not our projects. Our children also have a divine plan. And that divine plan, their own life force needs to be allowed to emerge. So I've got lots of ideas from my study of ecosystems and ecology. And that's why in my Australian version of my book, I wrote this final chapter. And this final chapter says, looking to nature for answers in a post-pandemic world. And of course, we're not in a post-pandemic world yet, but I was hoping we would be. And can I quote Vandana Shiva, which is one of your heroes in India? So she says, and I quote her in my book, human society prospers best when it functions according to the principles that operate in the natural world. Human society prospers best when it functions according to the principles that operate in the natural world. So when I studied Vandana Shiva, while I was studying my ecology, because she works very mindfully with the environment, trying to help people recognize the importance of the environment, I discovered this intelligence in nature that we can learn from. And not only can we learn from it, we can apply it in our homes, we can apply it in our relationships, and we can also recognize that you know we are interconnected and interdependent, but even um, and that includes the soul. It includes the soul, and we can't leave that out. Sorry,
Yes.
long answer for you
No, no,
from
no.
me.
No, it was more informative, and it was very well received from
Thank you.
my side as well,
Okay,
and from the audiences as well.
okay,
And
super,
definitely,
super,
yeah.
super.
So you touched on a lot of different aspects that reach or influence us on a day-to-day basis, even if we don't agree it, or even if we don't look to the fact that, oh, this might be something, or even if we don't believe. So it is something that is there. You can't escape it. It's either you believe it or no, but it's gonna be there. And
Yes, yes,
if you
yes.
work with it, so what we say, there's a saying that you don't try to swim upstream. You follow the stream and you go with the flow, right?
Exactly, exactly,
So,
exactly. And we've got
so
to learn to adapt. We
yeah,
have got to, and in fact, that is our strength as human beings, is that
yeah,
we can learn to adapt.
yes, and that's how. So we've dominated a whole planet based on our ability to adapt, right?
Adaptation.
And,
Oh,
so
may
that,
it be a positive adaptation. That's the
yes,
thing that
uh,
I hope for.
yes. Now, and that everyone hopes for in the end to be positive and to have a good outcome, basically. So, and like you said, parenting is not a project, and it should go in a way that facilitates itself naturally, right?
And
You can't
facilitate our
force.
children to become who they need to become, who they
Yes,
are. We can't
yes,
make them who we are,
yes,
so
that's true.
we can
Uh,
learn from our children. That's a
yes,
change around. Instead of just thinking we have to teach them, we can also learn from them.
yes, definitely. And so yeah, we can so definitely learn from them, and we can learn from you as well. Definitely, we've learned a lot today from this interview, and thank you so much for being on the interview and giving us your precious time and helping us and our audiences understand parenting and how to do uh, basically life better. Uh, so thank you so much. And so before we go, I have one last question for you. Would you like to share anything with our audiences about you and your projects, or how they can reach out to you?
Yes, yes. So I have my book, and you are going to send the link. It's so the book is How to Raise a Man, and this is particularly for mothers of boys, but I also run mothers and daughters workshops online. So there are two options online. You can go to my website, megandebeyer.com, and you can join one of my live um, mothers and sons or mothers and daughters courses. It's advertised up there. Or you can go onto my website and join my Teachable program, which is a self-elect course. So it means you do it at your own pace and your own time. And it's you find the link on my website, megandebeyer.com, but it's self-paced and it's completely automatic with videos and worksheets.
Yes, definitely. And in this fast-paced environment, definitely everyone needs their own time to do it, and that will
Yes,
definitely help
yes,
everyone that wants to move at their own pace, right? Uh,
yes, yes,
Thank you
yes,
so
yes.
much for coming on to the Collective and Freedom Project stream and
Thank
helping our
you.
audiences understand parenting better. And
I wish for happy homes and
yes,
happy children.
yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
so I would like to thank the audiences as well for joining in, tuning in to Miss Megan, helping us understand parenting and how to build life better. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Like the video if you understood something from it, and share it with more people that you feel will definitely benefit
Then,
from this. And so see you next time.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye. Take
Thank
care.